most successful bilateral diplomatic channel between the two countries since the war started, and it has continued on a regular basis since it started in late summer of 2022. So it happens every 2 to 3 weeks, and essentially everything has to be done by the conditions which have been agreed upon. So that is, nobody is armed during the exchange. Obviously, you do have soldiers on either side watching the exchange, but none of the individuals involved in the exchange are carrying arms. So that goes for Ukrainian officials to the forensics and, of course, like the rescue services. And I think, of course, there has to be bodies to exchange. It is roughly 1-to-1, but not always. So sometimes Ukraine's receiving fewer Ukrainians than it is giving. Sometimes the other way around. I saw a notice of one exchange where they were giving 20-30 more Russians than they were receiving Ukrainians. So they have to keep to the rules, but also the Ukrainian side is very, very willing to get its dead back. So from what I understood from what they said, if it's slightly fewer, they're happy to agree to that, because for them, they said to me that the most important thing is to get back their dead and return them to their families.
You mentioned in your first answer the fact that this crossing point is not just used for the exchange of dead bodies, but also for prisoners of war being exchanged. One of the most tragic parts of your article, I thought, was this description of civilians watching the convoy, not necessarily knowing who was being transported. Could you tell us about that?
Sure, yeah. So as we were making our way towards the border, obviously it's a long convoy, traffic has to stop to let it pass because it's a sort of dual carriageway. And there was this young boy, he excitedly stood in the road and was waving at us, smiling. And the military intelligence official who was in the car with us said, "Oh, he thinks we're going to collect prisoners of war." And it's obviously really sad that we were traveling with refrigerated vans full of bodies and we were going to collect Ukrainian dead. But obviously I think the adults know the difference, because when they come to the prisoners of war, they come with buses, not refrigerated vans. And so I think the adults have recognised this, and the things travel by word of mouth in these villages, in these areas. They see the refrigerated vans go up. So when we were returning from the crossing point, and bearing in mind, as soon as the refrigerated van got over the border, we were out in there within seconds, because they have said that the shelling could start almost immediately. But as we were driving back through to Sumy, it was a few hundred people in total in these tiny villages that came out and just lined the streets. We saw one or two in the first very small village to start with, but